I'm Margie Maynard. I'm the Deputy Director for Engagement and Exhibitions at the Sonoma Valley Museum of Art. And on behalf of the museum, I just want to say we could not be more thrilled to bring this event back to the museum, which we haven't had since the fall of 2019. And it's really one of our favorite events. It's such a wonderful way to interpret art, to use poetry and to invite poets in and hear their fresh perspectives on the artwork that the museum is presenting. And we have a spectacular lineup tonight with the poets that Caroline M. Marr has assembled for us tonight. I'd just like to give a warm applause for Caroline and all of her. Of course, this is an event that is in celebration of Raymond Saunders and the exhibition on freedom and trust. And I would just like to take this opportunity to thank our exhibition sponsors that made this exhibition possible. And they are Dana Simpson-Stokes and Ken Stokes, Lane and Graham Smith, the Manatee Fund, and Jeannie Walker-Harvey. Yay! I hope everyone is enjoying the delicious food provided by Spread Kitchen, recently voted Best New Restaurant in Sonoma. So if you haven't taken a bite yet, please help yourself, and our volunteers would be more than happy to provide you a plate. Of course, this night would not be possible without the involvement of Carrie and our very generous vintner, Lloyd Davis, the founder of Corner 103. We will be featuring several of Corner 103's wines exclusively tonight. And I just wanted to introduce Lloyd. Originally from New York City, Lloyd's first career was spent in the banking and finance industry. And during that time, Lloyd entered the world of wine as a financial advisor for a major New York wine retailer. And of course, soon fell in love with the wine business as well as the art of winemaking. In 2008, he left New York and the financial world and came to Sonoma and took over the helm of Beyonce Winery and quickly returned it to profitability. He enhanced his winemaking team and changed the winemaking philosophy, and in 2014 founded Corner 103 and opened the tasting room on the corner of East Napa and First Street East. So next time you're in Sonoma, make sure to stop by. And he and his team continue to produce many, many award-winning wines, several of which you get to taste tonight. So at this time, I would like to ask Lloyd to just talk for a moment about the winery and about the wine, the first wine you had tonight and the wine that's coming up.
Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm Lloyd, one of Corner 103, and I'm so happy to be out here. Sonoma is all about wine, it's all about food, and it's all about art. And art takes so many different forms. It can be paintings, it can be poetry, it can be haircuts. It can encompass so many different things, and that's what I love about Sonoma, that we embrace all different aspects, all different cultures, all different things, which makes it a really wonderful place to live. Corner 103 is a passion of mine. I love wine, and I love sharing my passion with other people who have an equal passion. But what really makes me extremely excited is converting someone who's a beer lover. And I've been very fortunate to do that. The first wine that you enjoy today is my sparkling rosé. It's a big variety blend, 70% Pinot Noir, 25% Chardonnay, 5% Pinot Meunier. Pinot Meunier is a traditional champagne grade. You don't see a lot of wines made 100% with it, I added in to add a little extra body, a little extra free flowiness to the blend, and to try to make it more in the French style of winemaking. Bubbles are one of my favorite beverages, and it's one of my favorites because it's always associated with something festive. So from popping the cork, everyone gets energized and excited. When you put the liquid into the glass, it's cheers, congratulations, we're celebrating something. So I'm a firm believer in starting the day and ending the day. What the day is like, waking up and being able to enjoy the day is something worth celebrating. No matter how hectic your day was, coming home with the person that you love, even if that person's just yourself, is also celebrating. So I found it very important to start the event today with bubbles. The next one that you're going to enjoy is my Marsanne-Roussanne. Marsanne-Roussanne is two distinct grapes, Marsanne-Roussanne, but you very often find them running together because they run each other very well. It has some really bright acidity, which is the funny thing to get back here, which makes it very clean, crisp, refreshing on the palate. It also has some wonderful fruit flavors. Some people get more stone fruit, others get more tropical fruit. But what astounds me is that people also get a little bit of caramel. So they think the wine has touched the oak, which it hasn't. It's all stainless steel fermented, which I thought was the perfect wine for the first one. I'm not going to tell you why, I want you to experience it, but I think what you will hopefully find is that your enjoyment of wine also revolves around your mental attitude. When you're happy, wine tastes a certain way. When you're sad, wine tastes another way. When you're listening to the poems today, hopefully it's going to evoke a certain memory. It's going to evoke a certain experience that when you taste the wine as you're listening to it, will make the wine become more bright on the palate. So enjoy.
Okay, so I am being reminded to remind all of you, if there's anyone out there who doesn't have a glass in their hand right now and needs a glass, please raise your hand and someone will provide one for you. Okay, so I think we need one. Okay, so two here.
With wine or without the glass?
I think we're the Chardonnay. We're doing the Chardonnay. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Caroline Marr. Caroline Marr is the author of Special Education, Texas Review Press, and the chapbook Dream of the Lake by Bull City Press. She is also a high school health teacher in San Francisco, and Carrie is a graduate of the MFA program for writers at Warren Wilson College, an alumna of VONA, Bona, and a member of Rattle Collective. For tonight, Carrie asked each one of the poets that are and writers that are speaking tonight to compose an original piece, especially for this evening, in honor of Raymond Saunders, who himself authored a seminal essay titled Black is a Color in 1967, where he questions the stereotypical roles and subject matter for Black artists at that time. He even questions the centuries-old restrictions on using black paint in fine art. hence the title, Black is a Color. We are very fortunate that Raymond has provided the museum with a very substantial set of first edition pamphlets of this essay, and they are available in the store tonight for sale. There is a first edition, a second, and a third, but we have the first edition. And these little bags under here tonight, guys, is a copy for each one of you before you go home tonight. So I would like to turn this over to Carrie, who will introduce the rest of the poets this evening.
Thank you, Margie. So welcome again, everyone. And thank you to Margie and everyone at the museum for bringing us all together for this event. I'm so excited to be here with you all. And honestly, just to be lucky enough to share this spotlight with such a stunning lineup of readers today. I first met Mildred and Tijanna through the BIPOC Writing Party, an online gathering space that began to read and write together more than once in person after so much time in those little Zoom boxes. Tongo, of course, is a local inspiration and a real practitioner of arts as activism and community practice, and I'm so excited for this first opportunity to collaborate. So I'd just like to thank all three of my fellow writers for being here today, the Sonoma Valley Museum of Art for hosting this event, and Corner 103 Wines, thank you, Lloyd, for the delicious pairings. I want to recognize and thank the Miwok people for their ancestral and present care and connection to this land that we are currently using. And of course, I have to appreciate the incredibly talented artist Raymond Saunders, whose work inspired this whole conversation tonight. I can't wait to hear how each writer responds to Saunders' powerful images. I'm going to go through our bios first and kind of get that all out of the way, and then as each poet comes up, I'll do a little bit of talking about why they're paired with the one they're paired with. So our first reader tonight is going to be Mildred Thompson. Mildred is working on a collection of travel stories. She has performed her poetry in New York and the Bay Area and is part of 2 chapbooks. She's also a textile artist who has exhibited works and taught classes in New York as well as in Oakland. And driven by a fierce commitment to social justice, Thompson has led several health equity initiatives. She's also the proud mother of Joy. Thanks for being here, Joy. Our second reader will be me, Caroline Amar. You already heard my bio. I think the only thing that I would add is that as of 3 months ago, I became an Oaklander. I'm a long time citizen. So yeah, I'm so excited to share the stage tonight with other Bay Area writers and to honor, again, the brilliant Oakland-based poet Raymond Saunders. Our third reader will be Tijanna O. Eaton. Tijanna is a Black, poly, kinkster, queerdo, pocket butch with a high school diploma and a rap sheet. Her upcoming book, Bolt Cutters, which I hope we'll be hearing from tonight, is the story of her 12 arrests in 3 years in the early 90s. She is also the proud recipient of the Unicorn Authors Club's first Alumni Award. And then our final reader will be Tongo Eisen-Martin. Tongo is an activist, educator, and poet whose work centers on issues of mass incarceration, extrajudicial killings of Black people, and human rights. He challenges the structural racism of our society through both his poems and his community work, and is the current poet laureate of San Francisco. So he's the final reader, but as you might have noticed, it says on the program that we're closing with a blended poem, and you all received a little half sheet of paper and a pencil at your seat. So I'm a high school teacher, I couldn't help it. We will, as a community, be creating a poem together from our collective inspiration and energy today. So you can take a moment now or at any point during the reading to write down a few words or a line that you want to contribute It might be a response to the beautiful artworks that are on display in the gallery. It might be about an image that struck you. It might be a line from somebody who's reading tonight that you want to echo. I know that some of you do not identify as writers, so I just want to say no pressure. Everyone's just going to put a little bit in, so it's no pressure, truly. Just a few words, and I promise we'll make something beautiful together. And if you're feeling still pretty nervous or uninspired or confused, don't worry about it. Just wait for another pour or two, and I'm sure we'll get there. Okay, that's enough of me talking. As you heard from Lloyd, the wine that you're drinking right now, the Marsanne-Roussanne, did I say that right? Okay, great. Is elegant and crisp, much like Mildred's use of language. And like the Marsanne-Roussanne, Mildred's writing has great complexity and is refreshing and pleasing. In this case, not to the palate, but to our ears. Please welcome Mildred Thompson.
This wine is really good.
Carrie, I'm impressed. That was really good. So I'm going to actually just say a few words about Raymond Saunders before I do my piece, because many of you may not be familiar with who he is. And not to do a big bio, I'm just going to mention three things. Number one is that he's got a birthday coming up next week. So this is our celebration to him of his birthday, without ruining it. Number two, even though I met Raymond Saunders in 2007 and had some conversation with him, I felt for this piece I wanted to go deep and do a little bit of research, and then I got stuck down in that research hole, and I found out a lot of amazing things. Two pieces that I'm just going to mention, and they are reflected in my work, so if you might get confused. Number one is that Raymond Saunders has been banned from any of the places, big places that has his art, because he's known to show up with an eraser in his pocket or some chalk, and he will change the change. He will erase what's there and put something new. So he is not allowed in these big museums like the Whitney Museum and the Museum of Martin Luther King. I'm not joking. The Oakland Museum, one of his students was with him when he was at the Oakland Museum, and he was changing the art, and the security guard really said, you can't, that's a famous artist, you can't mess up this work. And I said, I'm not famous. The other thing about it is that he views art as fluid. So to him, he wasn't damaging the art. That's what he painted then, and now this is what he feels about it. So he really, he really believes in the fluidity of art. And so anyway, I'm going to just go ahead and read this piece that I wrote in tribute. It's called Saunders, The Being of Place. And it's prefaced by a part of a quote from Toni Morrison, who wrote the prologue for his 1993 catalog. And she describes his work in part as a kind of trembling tenderness touched with menace. 1934 produced two births. Raymond Saunders slipped into the world in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Franklin D. Roosevelt's spanking New Deal was born. Hoping to shake off the Great Depression, restore decline in infrastructure, boost employment, and offer bridges to hope, his WPA put several thousand to work. While 350,000 were African American, Langston Hughes' Ballad of Roosevelt reminds us FDR was not answered prayer for poor black people. But he created a web of 10,000 artists, his essential workers. Art as connector, remedy, buffer for a suffering nation, soothing balm for shredded dreams, art as catalyst for social change. Artists as cultural liberators, painting a new picture of America, installing beauty in ordinary spaces, pulsating waves of talent bubbling up, drip, 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 spilling over boundaries, naming and proclaiming our presence, boldly exhibiting our mastery, Augusta Savage, Charles White, Jacob Lawrence, Margaret Walker, and Zora doing their thing. Diego and Frida's big, bold statements. Giant, colorful walls weeping fanciful stories like griots on warm, dusty evenings. Stale office buildings sporting a new facade. Singing, jiving, smiling, inviting you in. Shifting city landscapes, raging and parading, bathed in waters of a new era. Was urbanity sprinkled like gold dust in Sanders' blood? Umbilical cord firmly tethered to a unique class of spatial intelligence? With first breath did he inhale the calling? Was he spoon-fed the formula, that being of place? A recurring citified brand hand-stamped on each piece, speaking the language of graffiti, of belonging. Found objects never lost show up on canvas corners. Melodic midnight birds, soft whistle cold train, perched within reach just beyond your eye. Blackboards clamor for chalk, dictating sacred codes, random numbers, whimsical childlike sketches, here today, erased tomorrow. Artist fluid, a living, breathing thing. Improvisational stylist, he stretches limits, pulls edges, carves new abstractions, reimagines realities, rebel with the cause. Sanders poured meaning into innocent pieces of wood and blank sheets of paper, brought life to empty canvases. Unafraid of the city's grit, he was the first to wear the crown. Can you see the tracks laid by the prior generation? Smell the familiar fragrant breeze as you linger longing for more? Sanders takes me home. Grandma's living room, long lacy curtains, fake flowers in a round red vase sitting atop crochet doilies, stiff starch ends pointing skyward, praising the Lord. Photos of the Holy Trinity slightly off-center hangs above a plastic-covered couch. Jesus, JFK, MLK in that order. Keeping close watch over the house. Look, and still might miss something not even hidden. Thinly sketched lines giving shape to formless black on black. Shadows, faint outlines, light trying to find itself, landing in the background, sideline, all around. Make that unapologetic black on black shout like Sunday mornings move up and strut all up in your face. Each brushstroke a tour inside his head. A quick peek, then a reminder. Look into your own soul, his organized command. Find your own voice in the work. Saunders' art provokes, it names our pain, offers delight and refuge. It teases and restores, pushes and lifts, answers without questions, caresses and blesses, then fades back into the black from which it came. If art is the highest manifestation of the human spirit, and artists are truth tellers who reflect and create the world around them, offering beauty, honesty, and relief, who restores an artist? Who rocks their soul, lifts their burdens, cradles their vision, feeds tender hearts when ghosts come creeping around calling their name? Sanders' belief in our inexhaustible talent fueled generations of students, his legacy assured. Upon whose bosom does your freedom rest? Which shores can cleanse the grease and dirt of today's crust? We seem to be living a 1930s rerun. Near depression, threats of war, rising global autocracy, internal discord, and unending health crisis. We are desperately in need of a New Deal. Roosevelt said the only thing to fear is fear itself. I say time for fear has expired. Turn fear into action. We need to deal a new hand with fewer trumps and tricks, redefine and recommit to higher ideals, surface an awakened appreciation and support for our artists, demand a fresh pledge to freedom and earned trust. time, here's a very different piece. And this piece is a result of a prompt. When you're in writing workshops and writing groups, you're given a prompt and you're just supposed to do something and just write. And for this prompt, thanks to my writing instructor, Sarah Amanda, back there, the prompt was to think of a famous adage and just write something about it. So this is called Ruby's story. When the going gets tough, the tough gets going. Sitting slowly on the side of her bed, twisting her long, thick, curly gray hair with one hand while removing her artificial right leg with the other, Ruby reluctantly began our interview. Standing tall like the sentry next to her bed, resembling an ever-present weapon, ready to beat you senseless if you dared to even think harmful thoughts about her, Ruby's prosthesis was as dear to her as life itself. On Easter's Eve, when a Savior's body was said to have vanished from the tomb, life drastically changed for 14-year-old Ruby. At dusk, while sitting at the bus stop on her way home from band practice, she and 2 others were struck by a drunk driver. In addition to the lost limb, she suffered a broken jaw and other internal injuries caused by that sudden, massive internal explosion of heavy metal trauma on innocent young flesh. As an adult, she continued to experience numerous challenges resulting from the accident. Most problematic, however, would be the phantom pain suffered by many amputees, excruciating pain coming from a limb no longer there. Unfortunately, no treatment exists for those episodes, lasting from a few minutes to several days. So while she survived the devastating accident, Ruby was forever changed. What did not change was her determination to succeed and her outlandish sense of humor. Not even 6 months after the accident, Ruby was playing jokes on people. She took particular delight in sitting in the front porch, appearing alone, but with siblings hovering just beyond the screen door. This bold 14-year-old would call on pacifiers, say she was having problems leaning down, and ask would they please come help her tie her shoes. Of course, the innocent subjects replied. Ruby, an intelligent young girl at the top of her class, easily engaged them in conversation. So the unsuspecting, kind person continued chatting while Ruby placed one foot then another to be tied. When a third leg appeared from under her skirt with the shoe to be tied, the result was often an animated, frightened, confused person who bolted upright and nearly tripped over the porch's guardrail, running to escape. Her siblings, screaming in laughter behind the door, never got tired of that joke. While toning down the humor as she grew older, Ruby is still known in the family for telling the dirtiest, funniest jokes that could absolutely compete with the raunchiest comedians around. During this visit, following her retirement after 50 years as a college professor, I sought to capture a peek into Ruby's formula for success. What motivated and sustained her? What contributed to her resilience? What drove her stamina? What kept her students still engaged decades after leaving her classroom? There seemed always to be a student stopping by or calling during my visits to her home in Atlanta. A huge house sitting on an acre of plush green grass with 4 bedrooms, 3 levels, and walls of art. An impressive collector of African-American art, finding an empty wall is impossible, even in bathrooms. Her bedroom seemed to be her central focus. Equipped with conveniences that accommodate her slowly compromising mobility, easy access to a mini refrigerator and a large TV with a constant chatter of CNN, the room was a haven for her art projects, framing, jewelry, and collage making. A cozy and protective cocoon, the room embraced and comforted her. Ruby shared a quote that helped put her disability in perspective. I used to cry because I had no shoes until I saw the girl who had no feet. After Ruby propped herself up with pillows and comforters, we began the interview. Although initially hesitant, Ruby grew more willing and responses flowed. Treasured family history was being recalled. Our upbringing, family and cultural values, and community resilience were primary to her sense of self and success. One positive outcome of Florida's despicable systemic racism and oppressive segregation was a strong bond that fiercely connected Black people and solidified our community. Teachers, preachers, lawyers, and business leaders lived among us, sharing their wisdom, cushioning economic hardships, nudging us forward. Recognizing her genius, teachers took special interest in Ruby, tutoring and mentoring her. Even after losing months of schooling, she graduated with highest honors, went immediately to college, and didn't stop until earning a doctorate at 27. 30 minutes into the interview, it was time to stop, bathroom break. While I happily leaped up from my chair, stretched, and casually walked to the bathroom, Ruby gently and carefully put her leg back in place, securing and pressing inserts, listening for the obligatory 3 clicks, securely fastening everything. Finally, she stood to gain balance, grabbed her cane, then began her journey to the bathroom. We both remembered when she could simply jump up on one leg and quickly hop to the bathroom. So gracefully accepting life's challenges, a life being well lived, such capacity for love and endurance despite the odds. My big sister, my inspiration, my light. Thank you.
Damn, Mildred. Wow. Oh.
That was just wonderful. Very inspiring. Moving.
Yes, I need a little.
Hopefully found the one. Hopefully found the one that paired nicely with the poem. The next one for your enjoyment is my shortcut. Shorts can be pretty bloody open. They can also be very light, crisp, and civic. Hopefully you're going to find mine nicely balanced, and you're going to get a little hint of creaminess, which is balanced with some wonderful acidity, which I believe is going to pair wonderfully well with the next poem. Enjoy.
I'm that next poet. So I'm paired with a Chardonnay. Figuring out how one pairs with someone's writing is a lot harder to do for yourself. So I'm just going to say that I'm paired with this lovely Chard because Chardonnay is a big favorite of my #1 fan, my mother. So, you know, this one's for her. Mildred, that was beautiful. And thank you for telling us even more about Raymond Saunders. And I'm just so interested by what some of the echoes I heard in your piece that I think will be in mine. So I'll start with the poem that I wrote for tonight in response to Saunders' work. And I took a lot of inspiration. I tried to pick just one painting, but the work is so stunning. So I drew from several pieces, including the title, Untitled, after Raymond Saunders. 1, here, beautiful country, borrow my mouth in the darkness. 2, you've forgotten your language. Jung at the center, again, again. An urn at the center of a grandmother's doily. 3, we are the center of our own worlds, paste thick on our lips, our hands. 5, again, again, nothing is free. Flowers, a shower of bombastic tongues. 7, an eye exploding out like a wave against the shore. What can I tell you, grandmothers? Your homes are for sale, a new wave washing in. Thanks, y'all. So I'm going to read 3 more poems tonight. And some of what Saunders' work brought up for me were some of the themes that I think about often. He uses a lot of found language, found text, a lot of which is in Chinese, which is a language I have a complicated relationship with. And this poem is from my first book, and it's about that. Death of the immigrant language. First, I went to get some dim sum. I was so hungry. Goodbyes and tears and watching the mortuary van pull away will do that to a person. And when I walked in to order, Ngoy Yokohagao, facing the usual lady with her streaky grays across the stainless steel counter, that's when I realized no one will say my name again. I will not use these words again except to order food. The counters are kept clean of grease and rust. I wish my mouth could do the same. I will not hear you say my name. I will not hear, except in passing, a few words here and there, the bus, the market, the shapes and sounds that could fit on one postcard. All I knew how to say to you anymore, and even that makes no damn sense. Goodbye, see you again. And the last 2 I'll read are from my chapbook, Dream of the Lake. Just a little shameless self-promotion here. Mildred has some items available for sale, I think. No? No? Oh, dang it. Okay. Well, I have some books available for sale in the shop. So you can pick those up if you want, along with all the other gorgeous things in the museum store. So this chapbook just came out this year, and it's about a number of things, including questions of inheritance, what it means to be a lifelong Californian, the landscape of Lake Tahoe, the construction of the railroad near there, and the fact that one of my ancestors was a railroad laborer. And this first poem is a duplex, a form invented by Jericho Brown. Wai-chan, where can I set this inheritance down? Maybe every winter was like this once. I know every winter was like this once. The whiteness devised to draw us in. The ways whiteness devises to draw us in. We will not hurt you, a gentle approach. It won't hurt you. Take the gentlest approach, a rustic wood bench, a sheepskin throw pillow. Rustic wood benches, sheepskin throw pillows. Who needs a fence when the bears walk through? No need for a fence. The bears walk through, always hungry. They do so much needing. I am always hungry, full of my needing. I know how to spend an inheritance down. Stage 2, physical incapacitation. When the waters rose, the forest stayed. What else can a forest do but stand? There would be no fire inside the lake. There would be no ground to tumble down, just water rising, cold and blue, the floods of the next era. Sometimes the change comes over you like that, all at once, a drowning. Hundreds of coolies were tied together and weighed down with rocks. Straw hats removed, queues tangled, bodies thrown in to save the cost of their pay. The historians say this is unlikely, given the railroad payroll shown each Chinese contractor paid, given how little Chinese labor cost, given the distance from the Truckee Railroad camp to the lake, given every other history I know, chains, bodies of water, ghosts. Sometimes a person isn't a person at all, but a weight to be freighted onto someone else's shoulder. Why not the silent lake? Why not a flood of furious bodies fighting toward the coldest surface? The forest stayed and drowned.
Well, that was just beautiful. And hopefully you're finding the wine helps enhance the beauty of the words that are coming up. Because as I mentioned earlier, your mood will impact how the wine is enjoyed. And each piece really touches the soul and brings out certain emotions, certain feelings, certain memories that hopefully the wine really helps enhance those things. The next one is my Syrah. And what I love about my Syrah, it has a nice balance of spice, but it's not overly spicy, which when you swallow, hopefully you'll find it very silky, very smooth, which I think goes really well with the next piece. So enjoy.
So Lloyd mentioned spice, and so I read the description for the Syrah, and I actually changed the reader order because I was like, Tijanna has to be paired with this one. So it's flavorful, it's layered, it's robust, and all of those things can absolutely be applied to Tijanna's bold writing. And I thought that her, Kingster self would appreciate a wine that strikes a balance between power and elegance. So make sure you get your pour of the Syrah. Tijanna O, Eaton, everyone.
That was 5 times.
Last year, I had a nervous breakdown in the den during a routine writing session in my office club. A flower explosion complete with crying, wailing, the beating of the chest and the floor, and the proverbial why directed toward God and my dead father. Apparently, the word laureate is grapple, which takes over from the word land, which I finally managed to do last year, mere moments before the breakdown. Grappling began on April 24th, 2021, with the shattering of the urn of grief. Wait a minute, though. It wasn't shattered. No, it was just full, ashes having spilled out for so long that ramparts had formed around the base of the urn. This vessel just needed to be emptied. Ashes poured gently into one of those square little ash boxes, and the spilled char swept carefully into the box too, and labeled with some cryptically clear scribble. I emptied it with careful force, a juggernaut of emotion, the concentrated grief pooling on the carpet that substituted for bare earth, warmed, parts aerosolized to be welcomed by the ambience of the room. Inside these urns, the depth and concentration of the blackness is soothing to my eye. It is a warm black, a comforting black, a foundational black, impasto thick with sticky, inimitable blackness. The inner sanctum, the safety, the comfort. The container of blackness shows what it feels like when I'm inside my safe zones. Like when I'm in the den, in the Neanderthal corner. No, but really the entire den, when the door is shut and I feel safe. Like leather and dashikis and biker boots, holding the perimeter so my insides can exhale into the space. Eternal blackness is the best thing ever. Slavery. Jim Crow. The school to prison pipeline. Okay, now that our mule has plowed those 40 acres, let me build a little house on the corner of it. Deep addiction, like jail, distorts time. On one hand, I was acutely aware of every minute, especially the time between fixes, especially the time between being dope sick and getting well. Being dope sick is like Burning Man. Impossible to describe unless you've experienced it. No. Being dope sick is 1,000 times more miserable than Burning Man, and people should not experience it at all, ever. Being dope sick is like having a cold and a flu at the same time. Kicking dope is like that, but also adds vomiting, dry heaving, insomnia, and psychosis. Oh, plus your whole body feels like you've been tackled by an NFL linebacker. Plus the rats. Every detoxing addict has that one symptom that breaks them and sends them running back to mom. Some people can't stand the constant vomiting. Others hate flu-like symptoms. Richard had a restless leg thing that made it impossible to kick for several years. Mine was the rats in the stomach. Okay, maybe not rats. Maybe just mice. Or gerbils. Yeah, gerbils. I like that word, gerbil. It makes me giggle whenever I say it. They're so cute and... Okay, anyway. It was probably gerbils, but rats sounds better and is still the best description. However, they were not just any pair of rats. They were those two rats in a cage, strapped to Winston's face at the end of George Orwell's book, 1984. The rats seemed like they hadn't been fed in several days because they were fighting, clawing, gnawing at each other. Winston's torturer told him how they might bore through his cheeks should the cage door be lifted. That's how detox felt. It was the worst thing in the world. And it went on for 8 entire days. Here, take it. It's part of my body's legacy, and I now leave you with it. Addiction and homelessness have left their individual legacies, each one an acorn that grew into an oak tree that mingled with the other oak trees growing in the orchard inside my body. They have had some interesting effects, even after 28 years clean and sober, that I was about to experience in a very visceral way. A few years ago, I got accepted into a filmmaking workshop for queer and trans women of color. My film attempted to tell the story of my addiction, homelessness, incarceration, and recovery in 4 brief minutes. In preparing for the homeless drug addict portion of the film, there I was in a corner store, standing frozen in front of the 40s, trying to decide which beer had the most authentic look. None of this craft beer shit. I needed something that said, I belong in a large paper bag being passed around in the doorway and then thrown at somebody's head afterward. I went to the smoke shop and left with the cheapest, simplest pipe I could get. I procured a brand new syringe from the local drugstore. I wasn't going to film myself doing any of these things, but I was going to get as close as I possibly could. At home, in the kitchen of my house that I purchased with my money from my job, I set up the scene to simulate the preparation of heroin like I did when I didn't have a home. Muscle memory is an amazing thing because I did that as if it was that morning, not almost 30 years ago. You won't believe what happened next. As I tapped out the bubbles and positioned the plunger so that a single drop of liquid appeared on the tip of the needle, my veins opened up. Off camera, wide-eyed, I had to keep filming. The blood in my body seemed to change its course and began rushing to a particular spot on my arm. Little men in overalls jumped up from reading newspapers and began turning wheels, pressing buttons, and shouting orders. This particular crew hadn't worked in decades, but they began working as if no time had passed. The next instinct was to face the needle toward my arm and complete the task. But that's where the scene ended. The feeling was real, but the mechanical will to use had been extinguished, or at least suppressed, barely restrained. Besides, if I was going to do something like that, I should get the real thing. I'm sure I could have figured that out, but the thought of abandoning my film with my awesome mentor, driving to the city, finding parking in the Mission, and then wandering around like a narc, looking for a connection was just too much. Besides, we were on a very tight filming schedule, and I didn't have time for that mess. Oh, plus sobriety, plus jail and thin mattresses, plus the rats. For 2 days after, I could feel every particle, every blood cell waiting, wondering, inquiring. Even the collapsed mother lode in the crook of my right elbow got in on it, agitating for an infusion. You never forget how to ride a bicycle, and apparently you never forget how to shoot heroin either. That particular legacy is embedded deeply in my cells, in the blood. I am grateful to God that I didn't relapse, for these experiences cannot be removed either from my mind or my body. They have left their legacies whether or not I wanted them to. They have dissolved and dispersed inside of me. Legacy be like, baby, put a teaspoon of sugar in my tea, will you? You put in the sugar, stir it around. Then try to remove it 10 seconds later. Thank you.
Hopefully you found the wine was well with the piece. I wish I had a glass because I could use one there. The next wine for you enjoying is what I call inspiration. It's a traditional Bordeaux blend, so it's the 5 red Bordeaux varietals, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Malbec, Merlot, and Petit Verdot. The main inspiration evolved over many years. The vintage that you're enjoying is 2018. I've tried to make this blend since 2012. And every year I could never get the grapes, the wine, to work perfectly together. Finally, 2018 comes along, and I get it to work so that I love the blend. And I was with a friend of mine, and he said, "You must be very inspired." And I was like, "I was. That could be the name for the wine." And he went on to tell me some things that were troubling him and struggles that he was dealing with that he never had the courage or the strength to talk to me about. And it was very inspiring for me. So with that conversation, plus him mentioning the word inspired, putting wine together, I came up with the name Inspiration. Hopefully you will find it also very inspirational as you're enjoying it, which I think is going to go nicely with the next artist that we have here. So enjoy.
So the wine is called Inspiration, and we just heard the beautiful story of why. And so, of course, given that name, Margie and I thought this had to be the wine for Tongo. described as complex and beautiful, the same can be said of Tongo's work not only as a poet, but as an activist and educator, bringing together all those skills, much the way this wine brings together that mix of grapes to make something greater than the sum of its parts. I'm sure he'll inspire all of us today. Please welcome Tongo Eisen-Martin.
They will slide the wallpaper right into your cereal bowl. Flesh market both sides of the levee. Change of plans both sides of the non-violence on no earth, just an earth character. I'm a beggar, and all of this day is too easy. I want to see all the phases of a wall. Every age it goes through, it's humanity, it's environmental racism. We call this the ordeal blues. Now crawl to the piano seat to make a blanket for yourself, paint scenes of a child, dancing up to a quarter parent, and leaving an adult but not for home. Atlantic Ocean charts mixed in with the parole papers. Mainstream funding the ruling class, only pacifism. Ruling class printing judges. Fiat kangaroos. Making judges hand over fist, rapture cop packs, and opposition whites all above a thorny stem, cast plans picked out like bands for the murder show. Anglo Saints addicting you to a power structure. You want me to raise a little slave, don't you? Bash his little brain and send him to your civil rights. Now, I had this dream, planted dead in the weekday that I was laid up in the hospital. People kept coming into my room by the dozens, and each dozen had special handshakes for each other, and occasionally current dance moves, and they would kick my hospital bed from time to time and let me know that they'd be dancing from this room on out to my grave. Strange cha-chas and soft shoe shuffles, disco spins like they were dancing for a white sundial, marking numbness in their feet, drum race ride, and I was ready to die because, ask a musician in the tunes after court, it's the surroundings themselves that is the uniform, but still I just couldn't bring myself to visualize against God. One of them stood over me like a conductor, waving their arms over my body, directed my heart to be fainter and fainter, directing the tubes to turn the fluids back, and I kept fading from consciousness with thud after thud on the legs of my bed as they danced, wilder and wilder. Wilder, meek, or artificially meek, like an artificial pastor told them to be. I was to be some kind of projection or character to be laid at their feet. You the only one participating in the revolution today. They mocked me, and I was ready to go because, there's plenty of pianos that could use a new soul, and I'm going to be in the revolution for as long as it takes. So you can punch me out now. I was born with one foot in the lime pit anyway, but check it out. No one bothered to ask the doctor if I was really dead. They're just too busy strutting, too busy kissing, and I kept fading, with only enough breath and sweet consciousness to count their smiles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I heard a voice, a whisper, and it was counting with me. 6, we said. 7, we said. 8. And another voice joined us. 9, 10, and 11. See, I haven't been eating, Mama. I've been in a trance. I haven't been sleeping. I've been washing my face off the port of Charleston. There's blood on the floor. I go to the railroad tracks and follow them to the station of my enemies. A cobalt-toothed man pitches pennies at my mugshot negative all over the United States. There are toddlers in the rock. I see why everyone out here got the big cosmic basket and why blood agreements mean a lot and why it gets shot back at. I understand the psycho-spiritual refusal to write white history and take the glass freeway. White skin tattooed on my right forearm, ricochet sewage near where I collapsed into a rat-infested manhood. My new existence is living graffiti. In the kitchen with a lot of gun cylinders, the hacked up house of God in part, no cops in part, my body brings down to Christmas. The new bullets pray over blankets made from the old bullets, pray over the 28 hours next beauty mark, extrajudicial Confederate statue restoration, the waistband before the next protest poster. Hey, by the way, time is not an illusion, Your Honor. I will save your deaths for last. You're a winner, Your Honor. You're moving money again, Your Honor. It's only raining one thing. Non-white cops and prison guard shadows reminded me of spoiled milk floating on the oil spill. Neighborhood making a lot of fuss over his demise. A new lake for a Black Panther party. Malcolm X's ballroom jacket slung over my son's shoulder. The fig in the village. A new noose to a new white picture. All in an abstract painting for president. Bought slavery some time, didn't it? The Tanzan streets is a military boats and election Tuesday cars. A cold-blooded study in leg irons. Proof that some white people have actually found the nooses. And sundown couples made their vows of love over opaque piece plastic and boat action audiences. The measure every second is definitely my favorite law of science. Final loose clippings and primitive Methodists, my arm changes and imperialisms. Simple policing versus structural frenzies. Elementary school script versus even white and white spectrums. All is bleeding in the challenge of watching civilians taking terrible rituals they have around the corner. They let their elders beg for public mercy. I'm gonna go ahead and sharpen these kids' heads in their ears myself and see how much gravy spills out of family crest. Modern Friends Award with their t-shirt poems and t-shirt guilt and me having on the cheapest pair of shoes on the bus. I had no choice but to read the city walls for signs of my life. You know, these little societies, they wander together like hopeful drops of a virus. The citizen testament is bent on offering me a nation of breadwinners to hold me back like it's a Brinks. I wrinkle the concrete sometimes like flesh. My Martin Luther King permanence turned away from a podium into the reeds like God is a danger between. Black August to the mountaintop balcony on my bedroom floor. You know they steal you from the earth itself and suspend you on your broken neck from your foolish euphoria. From the loyalty over the great superstition. Loyalty over their grand reform, I return to my mother completely disrespected. For peeling the heat off of purgatory, they kill poets like me. Walk me away from my poems, never to be heard from again. In this final industrial complex of bloodlines picked over, picked through a sport spiritual death that you devil at least half made, police become a pretty word. I'm reading the lynch mob shoestrings like they were tea leaves teaching you how to write about cities. It's the 25th century in the mirror, people. Tyranny against your chump change, your chump to be mocked even with a gun in your car. A cubit of needlework spell tuned for the proletariat, the relapse ministry. Talented people curled up in a fetal position next to a diamond dime, just another surface thing, the theatrics of tea house fascism, in a bouquet of surveillance cameras, in the poverty of God, new blue eyes, courses of water, a newly potted presidency. One big shiny corner if you ask the animated capitalism, another now literal boys, man, killing his wife, freedom, the deification of hyphens, medicine, bread, and picture shows, great protesters in LA, guest bar, ink, drop kicking roses in the graveyard. I mean, this DC Mint like a stone 20 and a half has been advancing despite CIA guideposts, despite non-African past and futures, a metaphorical but not surreal day in a horn-ridden life form player improvising king, like a radio prize fight featuring Shango himself, a real hand speaks the land of racism. Mount returned to the ground, Mount made progress with the gun. On our mother manual they put on music that evening, a swinging tight body language for you to drink with fermented $5 bills. For your body language, some applause. My past stomach line ain't either a good thing nor a bad thing, like being psyched on the way with a lethal injection. It'll sit you down with Lady Day. Lady Day leaving you to surrender their souls to Africa too soon. Polly thought floating in the cup of water she saved me. Accessing my stomach, accessing the love of the American lynx. Cold sleeves with an avalanche to the wrist. Our mother Emmanuel, avalanche to the sharp piece. Pain, the deal you make with pain. A piano makes sense for them. Laying hands on the world gradually. Addressing the bending necks on the streets of the north. Child saving in pain, repeated pain in the north. 10 trigger fingers on that piano of harmony would have me. Putting 100 fights on every direction offered her. Lady Day, leaning on trees again. Recruiting the countryside itself. Lay your planet on this lightning. Make your poems a corner pocket of men. I breathe the blues itself. America may clean my dead body, but will never include me. There goes the poet. Killing without killing. Never mind this little painting of your language. May I be a meaningful lynching. A crow's passing. good and dead by the afternoon.
We might all need a moment to process all of that. And we're going to take that moment. You have your papers. You've had a few pours of wine. Feeling real inspired. We're going to take a little pause, snack break, get a snack if you'd like, finish up this pour, have some water. And if you could just drop your papers on this table, we're going to work to create our blended poem together. Thank you so much to all of our readers.
No, I just wanted to be sure.
Feeling the same, my name. A naked eye probes my color.
Now, revel with the cause, words and wine, wow. Wine enhances one's experience. Abandonment to stay.
I don't know my place in these new wings, but the time has come for quiet.
My inspiration, my big sister, pairing perfectly blended.
Feeling, yet performing. Bathed in a water of the new sacred codes. Blackness, sadness, and a color.
Juggernaut of emotion, eternal blackness is the best thing ever. Blackness, wanton hunger. Given every other history I know, like opening the faucet and letting your veins pour out.
Turn fear into action. Dashing black diagonals illustrate a path lit with movement.
Look internally. I'm sorry. Look internally. Truth is powerful. A web of savory thoughts, bitter, sweet, and wandering aimlessly.
Together, yet separate. Feeling, yet performing. Loving, yet defensive. This is being together.
Just be present. Rebel with a cause.
Physical incapacitation, that's not what it says, in 4 minutes. Never mind who you thought I was, I am free. Black joy witnessed today, here, in this place.
Thank you all.